What is sensory branding, and why is your company focused on this approach?
I was inspired by buying a drink, a soft drink, in this case Coca-Cola. And I got it out of the fridge, and as I got it out of the fridge, I was holding it. I thought, well, this is a really iconic shape. What is it about this that almost compels me to buy this drink over any other? And actually what I discovered with a little bit of research is that Coca-Cola, when they originally designed the brief that went to their bottle supplier, said that if this bottle was dropped on the floor and broke into 100 pieces, they wanted a customer to be able to pick up one of those pieces and still recognize it as Coca-Cola. And that set up for me what I call smash your brand. And that's the idea that if you take away the logo, that you would still ultimately be able to recognize in this case that this was a bottle of Coca-Cola. And actually it's fascinating. When you take away a logo from many, many products, there are sensory signals that can become this smashable element of your brand. It can be a color, it can be a shape as we've seen, it could be a sound, a smell, a taste. And what we do is we try and define and understand what sensory signals may already exist, or if you haven't got any, what you could create and design into that experience. Another example might be the Johnson's baby powder smell. I bet if you were to try this at home, blindfold your friends and put the bottle of Johnson's baby powder under their nose, just through the sense of smell, a smashable signal, they'd instantly be able to recognize it as the Johnson's baby powder brand.
So how does sensory branding influence consumer behaviour?
What we did when I started out in this field was some really interesting consumer research to try and understand more deeply this very question, because we already knew that there was an over-reliance on words and pictures. And what we found is really fascinating, that actually the use of all five senses is much, much more in balance than we might think. To a certain extent, we are still very much visual beings, but the senses of smell and touch and sight and sound are far more important to that relationship between consumers and brands than we ever thought. Well, very often it's about appealing not just at a rational way, because most branding seems to me to be far too rational. It's about product attributes, or it's about pricing. And it actually, with the senses, we have a really fantastic opportunity to appeal at a very subconscious and emotional level. One of the things we know, for example, about the sense of smell is that it appeals to the part of our brain called the limbic system. And that's what controls our emotions and memories. And if you think about branding, what we're trying to do for a brand is set up a promise that's both emotional and rational, but is also one that we remember as distinct from all the others. And if we're using smell, for example, then we're creating that memory, those strong associations at an emotional level that will blast away our competition.
What's the relative effectiveness of different sensory approaches to marketing?
I think what I'd say to that is that what you've got to do is be able to orchestrate everything together. So what we try and avoid is thinking of senses in isolation. And so what we're doing is we're orchestrating sounds and smells and touch and things that work very much with the traditional visual communications that we're doing, and very much about the sort of the words that we come up with. There is this area called superadditivity. This is a fascinating area for me, because what it's essentially saying is that if we can create an emotional connection through one sense, we can actually multiply that emotional connection by introducing 2 or 3 more senses. So we're looking for the synergy across all 5 senses, rather than just thinking one at a time.
Can you tell me more about the marketing challenge that you faced in the case Insight?
Yeah, in this particular case, here was a bank that, like all other banks in Colombian market, was exactly the same. So there was absolutely no differentiation. And consumers' perception was that, why would I be loyal to one bank as opposed to any other? So the bank management knew that they had a real problem of driving differentiation that would lead to loyalty.
How did you use sensory branding to overcome this problem?
I think one of the things I've learned is that the bank could have worked with any one of a number of branding consultants, but most of those branding consultancies have a background and a vested interest in words and pictures. So if you're really going to differentiate, you have to start with working with partners who come from a different angle. So what we were able to do with that bank was come from a completely different angle and come up with expressions of that brand that are really engaging and really differentiated. For example, the sense of smell, it appeals to the part of our brain that controls emotions and memories. So we're trying to create an emotional position for that brand. So in working with us, that's what exactly we were able to do. We were able to create a fragrance that's subtly dispersed in the air, that's driven and designed by the very unique brand values of that brand, that's linked to a flavour that's very closely associated with the smell, but we've put into bottled water and flavoured sweets. And that whole personality through smell and taste is also linked to sounds that are played, what we call generative soundscapes, that are just subtly evolving sounds that links to what you're tasting, what you're smelling, and also what you're seeing and the things that you touch. And so the whole thing is orchestrated. And by doing it that way, it's entirely differentiated, and that leads to the loyalty that we were talking about, because here's something that I can experience, really believe in, deep down inside me, and then it's something that I want to tell my friends about.
What's the future for sensory branding?
I think sensory branding at the moment is still quite a small element of the total marketing spend, but I believe that's going to grow almost exponentially, because if we think about basic human behaviour, it's all about our relationships with one another, our relationships to the products and services that we buy. It's all about the senses. So marketing has got to adopt this as a mainstream element of marketing practice. I believe that in the next 5 years it will, and we will see this as a very significant part of marketing understanding, and that marketing students coming through at the moment will want to really make this a part of their career choice. So I think that we'll see sensory branding specialists very much at the heart of big branding companies and big marketing organisations.